Here in New York, after two Asian women were murdered within just 1 month, advocates are now calling for action. FBI data shows hate crimes against people of Asian descent increased during the pandemic, up by 76% in 2020 in the U.S. The organization Stop Asian American and Pacific Islander Hate reported more than 10,000 hate incidents between March 2020 and September of last year. Let's bring in Senior Staff Attorney, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, Stanley Mark, for more on that. Stanley, thank you for being here. You know, so far, police are not calling the stabbing of Christina Lee or the killing of Michelle Go, who was pushed in front of a subway car, hate crimes. They say these appeared to be random acts. But we heard there in the piece that there is still fear sparked among the Asian community, and particularly among Asian and Asian American women. So can you explain the dynamics at play here?
Well, obviously, there's been a spike that's carried over since the beginning of the pandemic from last year. Your figures indicate there's a sharp rise, and that rise is due to the fact that many Asian Americans are still targets for the result of the COVID rhetoric by the former administration, but also because of the continuing anti-China rhetoric based on foreign policy and human rights issues in China. And I think that increase will continue, but the fear exists, and I think it's real. Many of the folks we are at our office at the Asian American Legal Defense Fund, and I'm sure throughout the Asian American communities in the United States, feel this tremendous horror and shock, and as well as sadness. And my heart goes out to all these victims, Christine Yun Lee, and also Michelle Elisa Go. Their names should be remembered. There is no quick solution to this on a practical level. These individuals were, I believe, considered mentally ill and homeless, and it would be very difficult to establish that the motive at the time of the murder and attack would be motivated by racial animus. It's very difficult to do that unless you take into account this recent spike as a factor in considering that this is not the tipping point necessarily, but it has to be viewed as that, because certainly we as Asian Americans view these things as hate crimes, and it's part of the continuing spike and wave that's continued through the last 2 years. I think that for solutions, obviously we need more resources for culturally competent and linguistically appropriate resources for both the victims and the victims' families, as well as the perpetrators, because obviously there's a long list of people who've been attacked, random attacks against people, not just against Asians, but people across the board dealing with this issue of homeless and mentally ill people. I think that there has to be more resources devoted for mental health, that's provided across the board in all communities. That would help in a short term. There is a program. I think the governor and Mayor Adams at the press conference when Michelle Go was attacked, both of them mentioned the safe project. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it, but it is a team of individual mental health professionals that would sweep into the subways and into the streets, hoping to find people who are in desperate need of mental health and shelter, basically.
And Stanley, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I know cities like San Francisco and New York, they established task forces and increased police presence in predominantly Asian neighborhoods. Do you think that's been effective?
I think any type of, I would say, community-led types of solutions with neighborhood patrols, helping to build solidarity with neighbors and people who live in that community, looking out for each other, protecting each other, that would help. But it's only one piece of it. I think that's on a short-term practical level and not rely solely on police presence. However, on the long term, I think there is a need to definitely teach Asian American history, particularly legal history, in all our schools. And we have supported the legislation now that was enacted in New Jersey, but I think Illinois also has that, where K through 12 now will integrate Asian American curriculum, and I believe in Maryland it's in the state legislature. One of our board members testified in support of that legislation, and I believe that will help in a long-term strategy to eliminate this anti-Asian bias, at least hopefully for the next generation of people.
All right, Stanley Mark, we sure hope so. Thank you, Stanley.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.